Welcome, friends, to Authority. I am E. Prabilski, your host, and this is my friend L.L. Nelson, who is joining me today. We are going to be talking about live events for authors, which is something that I think is so important in this day and age because we are developing audiences that connect with us as well as online presences, and it's a big topic. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So,
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. So, L.L. Nelson is the author of the Lohi Sharon series, the Tempest Viatores series. You're a librarian and a history nerd like I am, which is one of the reasons we became friends like immediately. And you've got a Kickstarter going on for the fifth book in the Tempest Viatores series, I believe. You said it was the Jockey Hollow Joymakers, right?
yep.
Excellent. So we'll have links to all of those cool things down in the show notes, and we will be talking a little bit more about that as we get going. So, one of the things that I really wanted to bring you on to talk about is live events because I do a fair number of events. As we've talked about, I'm a history nerd. I do SCA events all the time. You've talked about doing Ren fairs and finding your people. Also, as a librarian, I'm sure you've done live events at libraries for people before. So, your expertise on this is awesome. So, tell me a little bit about your books and about like what kind of events you do. Like, let's get into some of that.
All right. So, my books, I have two main series. I have the Lois Sharon Chronicles, which is YA, I say older YA, so 16 plus. Um, and that is, yeah, YA Portal Fantasy. If you liked How to Train a Dragon and The Princess Diaries with like Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews,
Oh, those are
um,
fun.
imagine those two come together. If Mia Thermopolis got yeeted to Burke,
I
and then
love
she finds
this.
out, yes. And the funny thing is, and I'll tie in how I ended up getting that hook, and that part of that came from going to live events. Um, and then so that's my Norse fantasy. That's my dragons. And then I have the Tempest Viatora series, which is my newer one, and that is time travel. That is if you like Doctor Who and Outlander and Greek mythology. And I like to say I'm trying to think what else. Technically, I guess there's fated mates. My main characters are fated mates, according to some
Okay.
folks. Um, I never thought of them as fated mates, but I guess kind of. So, but
Written
like I
in the
say, Doctor
stars.
exactly. So with Tempest Viatoris, they have you have there's an omniverse, multiverse where there's different timelines. And in pretty much all of these timelines, the main two characters end up together in some way, shape, or form.
Aw.
And so that's I guess they are kind of fated mates, even though
Yeah.
it's not like being forced together, they just end up being
Yeah. They're
together.
just souls who always find each other. That's so sweet.
Exactly. And so even though they were technically from two vastly different time periods, Alex is from our world, our time. She's an archivist in, Washington, D.C. in 2009. And then Titus is from the first century Rome, the Roman Empire, that kind of stuff. And so if you like, and this ties in the Greek mythology, uh, the Greek muses are a big part of that. And Cleo, the Greek muse of history, is the person who is tossing people back and forth through time.
I love
Um,
this.
so I feel like having watched Doctor Who and how Cleo and her sisters are in my mind, I'm like, I would absolutely love to have, although I don't know if it would ever happen, have Cleo and Doctor Who like meet. I
That'd be
feel like
awesome.
they'd have fun.
That sounds like a
So
fanfic somebody needs to write. That's a hint to the community. Write a fanfic about that.
yes, yes. Um, Also for anyone who are fans of like the Librarians series and movies,
Mm-hmm.
um, and Warehouse 13,
Yep.
even though my characters don't go after artifacts, they are traveling through time, and especially the new spin-off series of the Librarians, where the main librarian has traveled forward in time.
Hmm.
Um,
I haven't seen that one yet.
it is so good. The funny thing is, so they're gonna have a second season of it. Um, I liked it a lot. It's not. going to be exactly the same flavor as the librarians. So librarians, I like to say, is Doctor Who meets um, Indiana Jones,
Yep, that makes sense.
and so this second series leans more heavily into the Doctor Who side
Mm-hmm.
and has more Doctor Who vibes and less Indiana Jones vibes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So,
So these
but
these are
yes.
amazing books. I'm super excited to hear you talk about them. And live events, it sounds like those books would really sell at conventions and conferences, like places where us nerds like to hang out. So, can you walk me through a little bit about like how you handle live events, what your approach is, and what you feel their place is for authors? Like, I know they're important, but a lot of people just seem to lean into digital marketing these days and kind of avoid in-person things, particularly since COVID, because we're all a little about that. But like, in a world where we're not really connected with other people face to face, how are you approaching all of these events? Like, what is the experience you've had?
So I will say I'm a self-professed introvert, although I'm probably becoming more of an ambivert in the fact that um, uh, when it comes to events, I will prep myself like socially or like social energy wise,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, okay, I'm going to these events. I'm putting on my, I don't want to say it's not customer service face, but like my I'm dealing with people
Yep.
face. Um, and I will there I've joined like groups and stuff that do a lot of these in-person events like craft fairs and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff just to kind of get the vibe and the culture of the of people who do these because there are some folks who do live events and that is how they make their money.
Yep.
Um, I was mentioning earlier that I went to a Viking festival
Yes.
here in so I'm in Southern California for anyone who's curious. There is a Viking festival in Vista, California every September, and it's a 2-day event. And to put it in context, um, I was a bit of a small fry at this event, but there are some people who go to these events and will make thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I made that much in my like, they're like, I'm gonna make this amount in 2 days, and I'm like, if I made that much in a year, I would be happy.
Yep.
And so, but they're also doing like crystal stuff and handmade sculptures and like
Yeah.
big ticket items.
Yep.
But uh how I prepare for stuff like this is talking to other vendors, finding out about the events, and then going to their websites, seeing what their because pretty much all of these events will have some kind of list of if you're interested in being a vendor for us, this is what you need to know. This is what you need
Mm-hmm.
to do. This is what we're expecting, and figuring out okay, am I capable of doing this event because there are some very big events where like it's a professional production and they're expecting
Mm-hmm.
um, all of the vendors, no matter what they're selling, to have a certain level of
Yeah.
professional business stuff. But I didn't start out going to like these 2-day or even week-long events. I mean, I started out going to a local farmers market, which obviously is not the best place to be selling books, but I sold some books, and that allowed me to get um, sort of my feet wet and
Mm-hmm. Get some
figure out
experience.
exactly. And so, the farmers market that I started out at um, was only, and the funny thing was, um, it was, I want to say like 30-35 bucks to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a huge,
Major
it wasn't
overhead.
like a
Yeah.
huge, yeah. And it allowed me to talk to other vendors who are like, okay, if you're going to be doing outdoor events here in Southern California, here's what you need to expect. Here's what
Yep.
time and money you need to invest. And so, like where I'm at, it can get very windy very fast. Not so much about rain. Like
Well.
when I went to the Viking festival, we had rain on Sunday, and like everyone's like, "What? What rain?" But
I laugh in New England as we have a nor'easter outside and the wind is just
yeah,
blowing rain horizontal past my windows.
yeah,
Granted, your heat is nothing to laugh at, but like just chuckles in New England.
yeah. No, I mean we'll have events where if it reaches over like 110, they might cancel because people.
No. No.
Wait, this is the Inland Empire.
Hiss.
Inland Empire is like desert.
No,
Like
thank you.
I'm driving distance from Death Valley.
No, thank you. If I see anything like I have fought in, so to those of you listening, I do Society for Create Anachronism. I am a fencer, and when we fight, we are in full fencing safety gear. I'm essentially wearing a couch in the sun, and I have fought in 100-degree weather with 100% humidity out here because it gets humid. And the idea of 110 just makes every cell in my body lose its water at once, and I become a raisin very quickly. Just no, bitch,
So
no.
there is well, so usually at about 110, you're not going to get too many people coming to the event,
I
and
imagine
that's why
not.
they'll postpone it. But I've been in events that like 4th of July events and that kind of stuff where it is in the 90s and people will have, or even like at the Viking Festival where it wasn't even in the 90s, but like Saturday it was just super hot and humid. Not for New England, but for California standards.
Humid for
It was
California standards, but hot by California standards, and putting those two things together, I don't want. I
Yeah,
just don't want.
but the folks next to me brought a Ryobi Mister,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yep.
had it on top of one of the Home Depot buckets, and
Yep.
everyone was coming over to their tent
Yep.
because it was like, oh. So you have different depending on where you are, there's different ways to adapt to the climate.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this is for outdoor events. There's also
Yes.
indoor events, and those are going to be a lot easier in terms of like climate and stuff.
Yep.
Um, you're the the biggest thing that I found between like outdoor events and indoor events is spacing. You
Mm-hmm.
tend to have less space when you're at an indoor event.
Yep.
Um, Outdoor events, because most are going to have like a pop-up tent, the
Yep.
smallest space is going to be like a 10 by 10. And that can actually give you a bunch of decent space to like spread out and show off your wares and that kind
Decorate
of
and
stuff. Hmm.
is there a particular way you choose what events to go to? Like, how do you select what events fit you as an author and fit your books? Like, what are your metrics for that?
So for me, it is looking at seeing whether or not there are, first of all, is it a fantasy adjacent? Because I'm a fantasy author. Is it a fantasy adjacent event or is it a book event?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said early on, went to the farmer's market. I would never do farmer's markets again because people aren't going to the farmer's market to find books.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not saying that I regret going to those events because it helped me get my feet wet and helped me get used
Yeah,
to doing
definitely.
in-person events. But now I tend to focus on like I said, the Viking Festival.
Yep.
That was really handy, and a lot of people were coming there, and they were already, they were ready to have fun. They were ready to, you know, be into the fantasy and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Um, so I'll look at events that have um, are like fantasy or somehow adjacent to my stuff.
So target
Um,
market, you're the people you think will enjoy your books are probably attending this event.
yes.
Definitely.
Um, So, and this is where I haven't vended at, well, I guess I can say now that I have done a Ren Fair because I did one in April. It was
Mm-hmm.
an up and coming one. Um, there's a few very big Ren Fairs in Southern California, but because of our weather, there could be so many more. And so there was one near me that was like a 1 day event, and I did really well there. And that's in Temecula. And so anyone who's familiar with like Riverside will know know where Temecula is.
I do
Um,
not, but I respect the fact that there are people who will.
yes. Um, and so uh, like there's there's basically I went to that one in April and I realized everyone was like, heck yes, I want these books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more likely at those events to have someone who looks at my books, they're like, I've never heard of you, but your books sound cool. I'm gonna buy everything. And it blows my mind and I'm just all like, "Yay!"
Yes.
Um and so choosing more events that are like fantasy adjacent, Like I said, with the Viking Festival, even though it's uh sorry, just okay, no. I had to double check and make sure it wasn't my kid's school calling me.
Understandable. Sometimes
So,
we got to take care of the little ones, and that has to take priority. I get you.
but no, it's the spam caller, so whatever.
Nope. Goodbye.
Exactly. So, like with the Viking Festival, and I had do Norse fantasy and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, um, I'll I'll jump on something like that because I know that not only are the folks into fantasy, but they're also into like Norse fantasy. They're into dragons. They're
Yep.
into all that kind of stuff. Um, and with obviously with Ren fairs,
Yep.
um, also people at Ren fairs are willing to spend a lot of money. They, compared to like a farmer's market,
Mm-hmm.
whereas people are like, I'm going here to get my vegetables.
Yep.
If someone's going to a Ren fair, they're already paying to get in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Chances are, if they are dressed to the nines in like full clothing,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they're more than happy to spend money on that kind of stuff. And so, um, for them, fantasy books, it's part of their,
Yep. It's
you
part of
know,
our lives, really. As a
exactly.
side note, as a recommendation for fantasy authors out there who are looking for events, Renaissance fairs are excellent. You should also look for SCA events, Society for Creative Anachronism, if you have them in your
Hmm.
area, which you probably do. I'm a member of this group, so I'm biased in our favor. But we do historical recreation, and it's a very Ren Fair type crowd. The crossover is massive, but SCA events, there are events happening almost every single weekend around the year. So if you can
Yeah.
find some SCA events to attend, that can also supplement some of those Ren Fair activities. And Scadians are also that kind of nerd, and the events are a lot of fun. So in addition to Ren Fairs, I strongly suggest looking into those kinds of recreation events because also there's a
Oh yeah.
huge number of fantasy writers in the SCA.
Yep.
So,
And that's actually something that I do want to get into along with the Ren Fair and all, there's like a circuit. That was
mm-hmm,
what one of the another vendor that I was talking to was like, there is a Ren Fair circuit, there's an SCA circuit
yep,
where you can go to these events and people are more than happy to buy books. They're more than happy to interact with you. And that's the interesting thing that I found between more fantasy adjacent events versus um, like farmers markets or local events is that um, when I'm at these fantasy adjacent events, I can let my nerd out
mm-hmm.
100% and not feel like people are staring at me like you're weird.
It's about
Um,
finding your people, really,
exactly.
I think is the key to this. So in terms of where you choose, you're looking for places that sound like your kind of people would hang out.
Hmm.
Because most of us were writing to a target audience who are our people, because we are our people, theoretically.
Yeah.
So it's about locating your people. Do you have any advice for authors who've never done a live event before? Like, what should they bring? Is there any kind of like, what should they expect? Or how do they deal with certain things? Like, how do they account for stuff? Because I know a lot of authors are introverts and get really nervous talking to
Hmm.
people. So maybe a little bit of information about like what to bring and to expect might help.
So it depends on whether or not you're doing an indoor event or an outdoor event. I will say indoor events, less stuff to bring.
Mm-hmm.
Usually with indoor events, they're going to already have tables, they might have chairs. Um, I would say bring your books, obviously. Um, Bring information on like the cost, um, s- stuff to like how to be paid.
Yep.
So, and I would highly recommend that if you're doing any of these events, to get Square or Stripe. I use Square because it's easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just rely on cash because a lot of times I'd say 90% of my
Yep.
sales are through card. Um, I know some people who accept checks. I'll accept checks. I have never had someone pay me with a check, but depending on your genre, they might.
Yep.
Um, I went to a author fair recently, and the lady who was next to me, she was a JAF author. For those who don't know, JAF is Jane Austen fan fiction.
Ah, okay.
And so her demographic is actually older.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when she goes to events, a lot of times people will pay her in checks.
Mm-hmm. That makes
Um,
sense.
so I say a big thing is being open to not only um, to not only doing cash, but cash, card, any kind of
Different payment
payment.
methods. Yep.
Exactly.
One thing I learned at Reader Nation last year doing my first live event was bring a tablecloth
Yes.
because there may not be a tablecloth on the table, and a bare table is not a pretty thing.
Yes, exactly. That's another thing. And depending on um if it's like your first event, it's like honestly you could go to the dollar store and grab a cheap plastic cloth.
Yep.
Um but also Amazon will have like the stretchy ones. And
Mm-hmm.
if you get the stretchy ones that like go underneath the table, make sure to get one that is the size of the table.
Yes.
Because sometimes you'll have bigger tables, you have smaller tables. Um, I know last year um, when I did Reader Nation as
Mm-hmm.
well, um, they had originally said it was going to be an 8 foot long table,
Yep.
and then so I was like, okay, cool. I will get. Specifically purchased a tablecloth for 8 foot long table, and then they said, oh no, it's going to be a 6 foot long table. So I'm just like, well, crap. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stuff it
Yep.
around
My
and
table is
make
now
it work.
extra fancy. She has a
Exactly.
very long skirt.
And exactly. And as long as it doesn't get in the way of people walking around it, it's
Yep.
fine. I'd also recommend, um, if you don't really have like a color scheme or something, black or white.
Yep.
Keep it plain. Um, I also have table runners that have my author logo, my
Oh, nice.
branding on it, and those can kind of that is not a need for like a first time
Yeah.
person, but if you do end up doing more in-person events, those are really handy. Um, and I would say also if you're able to have something that is, and this also depends on how many books you're bringing. If
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing one or two books, it's not necessarily a big deal if you don't have a lot of height.
Yeah.
But if you have more, um, I found a cheap plant holder. So like one of those. So we have a store called Daiso
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of Japanese stuff.
Okay.
Um, and they have a lot of like plant holders, and so I have a wooden one, and it's perfect for holding my books,
Nice.
and it's tall enough that I can put it on the table and then show off my books, and so people can check them out. And having some height to a table is actually really good for bringing someone's eyes to your
Okay.
table. So
So a
if
little
your
bit of
books are
height.
just flat,
Yeah.
your books are flat on the table, people won't necessarily be able to see all the beautiful artwork.
Also, things like book stands, like over back here, I've
Yes.
got them, some of them standing up. That would be probably a good idea too.
Yeah. And
And
even
you
though
can
I
get
don't
those
do
cheap on
horror,
Amazon. Like they're
oh
like
yeah.
$6 for like 10 of them. I have a stack of them over here.
Oh yeah. And I have the same stuff, like just cheap little things that give you a little bit of height, or um I have, and I say very minimal decoration, maybe a couple of pieces. The funny thing is, I got a couple of Edgar Allan Poe pieces of art, like a keyboard, not keyboard, typewriter,
Yep.
and a bust of him. And even though I don't do horror, people know what he looks like,
Yes.
and they'll come over and they're like, "Oh, look, it's Edgar Allan Poe."
Nice.
And honestly, that has brought more people to my table than anything else.
So like
So like,
little small, even if they're just individual, like little decorative pieces that people will be
yeah,
like, oh, that's a cool thing, and come over and look at it.
yeah. And like I got those on sale after Halloween
Mm-hmm.
for at Michael's. So
Yep.
you can go to any of these places. The dollar store, I've gotten little like fake lanterns
Mm-hmm.
and the LED candles and that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And it's just something small, and people are just like, "Oh, that looks so cool." So, highly recommend having a little bit of artwork, or, something that will catch people's attention.
Yeah.
I also highly recommend, I need to get back into doing this. I have not printed off, if you have a newsletter,
Yep.
having like a sign up sheet for a newsletter. Also, if you do run out of books, which is an awesome thing, by the way,
Yes.
having a similar printout sheet where someone can put their name and their email
Yep.
address. I've done this at some events where, like, I ran out of my when I did the Viking Festival, that was the first of 3 events in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so I ran out of my the first book in my time travel series at the Viking Festival, and then I had an author festival, and then I had a fall festival. And so I was telling people at the other 2 events, I was like, I got plenty of books 2 and 3. If you want book 1, um, you know, put your name and your email, and I'll let you know when the books are in. And I actually had one person who's like, I will buy it ahead of time and I will pay you for shipping as
Oh,
well.
nice.
Um, and so my books came in and I sent out the books that had been prepaid for. Um, and that's very handy if you do end up
Definitely.
running out of books.
That's an
Is the
excellent suggestion. Um, and in that vein, like, also, like, getting back into you being an introvert, and I'm also an introvert, like, I'm an autistic weirdo, and people are not my forte, despite what it looks like on the
same.
internet. Um, right, many of us are. Um, that is a canon thing for authors, I think. But how do you deal with the people? Like, I've heard so much conflicting advice, like you need to stand in front of your table, you need to stand behind your table, that there's all these like things that'll magically fix things. Like, is there any particular thing that you can recommend for people? Like, even if it's just one thing that will really make a difference in their connecting with people at the table, even if they're anxious about it, like one thing.
Um, I would say you asked me to do one thing, and I'm just like, I can't do just one
But
thing.
okay, well then you can give me three. Does three work?
Okay.
We'll do
Yeah.
three.
3. So number 1, don't be constantly looking at your phone, which is
Yep.
addictive for me. Um, because I've been to events where authors were like looking at their phones. I'm like, okay, they don't look like they're interested. Um, but also don't be like, and this is where I'm like, I will stay behind my table
Mm-hmm.
unless I'm interacting with other people. Sometimes I'll come out from behind my table, but I usually stay behind my table because sometimes if you're in front of your table, people will just be like, okay, they're going to be a little too intense, and they'll kind of shy away. Um, so I do. So I will stand up sometimes. I'll sit
Mm-hmm.
down sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling.
Yep.
But I'll always um like be looking at the
You'll be
whoever's
present.
passing by. I'll be present, and I'll just say hi,
Yeah.
and I can kind of read how they're going to react by me just saying, hi or good morning or that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will just say hi. If someone is interested when you say hi, they might stop, pause, and kind of look at things, and then you can go into a pitch. Um, for me, that's the other thing I would recommend is having some kind of pitch ready. So
Okay.
for me, I say, do you enjoy dragons or time travel?
Mm-hmm.
Which at most of the fantasy events,
The answer is yes.
the answer is yes, or they'll start laughing and like, of course I am.
Like,
Like,
where
you
are
know,
we?
yes, exactly. Um, what's funny is if an event isn't doesn't have a lot of authors there, I will sometimes ask, do you enjoy books?
Yep.
Because I went the fall festival that I went to a couple weeks ago was at a 55 and older community. And a lot of it was crafts, a lot of it was
Mm-hmm.
all like handmade goods. But people who there aren't necessarily coming for books. Some of them will. Some of them I actually made a very decent I sold a lot of books at that event.
Excellent.
But I would ask, you know, do you enjoy books? And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say have some kind of pitch, but also adjust it to what kind of event you're at.
Okay.
If you're like at a fantasy event or an event where there's a lot of other authors, obviously they're there for books.
Right.
So if you go to Reader Nation and are asking, "Hey, do you like books?"
Like,
Yes, I'm here. Do
yeah.
you like books with dragons or time travel? Then people might be like, "Hmm." But I'd say before you do that, to just be engaged, be present, say, "Hello, good morning."
Yep.
And understand there's always going to be people who have a cloud over their heads.
Yep.
And that is, do not take that personally. That was something I absolutely had to learn with some of my first events is um it doesn't matter how cheerful you are, it doesn't matter, you know, how great the event is going. Some people just have a thundercloud over their head
There are
and they
some
are
people
going
who
to
are allergic
rain.
to fun.
Exactly. And so, I've been at events where I'm like, "Hey, do you enjoy books?" or "Hey, do you like dragons or time travel?" And they're just like, "No." And they walk off. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I didn't say
Well,
that to them." But in my mind I'm like, "I'm sorry."
sounds like you're having a bad day.
Yeah. And you know, if people act that way, you don't have to interact with them. Just, that's where the customer service like smile
Yeah.
comes in like, "Okay,
Yep.
okay." But definitely, and I've talked to some other folks who like it's been their first time doing an event or something, and just understanding, don't take it personally
Yep.
because they're not personally being a butt to you.
Right. It's about them and whatever's going on in their life at that moment. Maybe they like
Yeah,
stubbed their toe and are looking for their kid and
yeah,
having a bad moment.
exactly. And if someone at on the rare occasion that someone is actually like being grumpy personally at you, you can go to the people who are running the event and be like, look, for some reason this person has a bone to pick with me. And usually though, if they get to that point, other people
Yeah.
are catching drift of it. And the a good event, someone who's running an event, good event runners,
Yeah.
um, they will come in and they will um sort of break it. I don't say break it up, but they will come in and
They'll
in
intercede.
certain. Yeah, because first of all, with a lot of these events, the people who are running the events, they don't want to alienate uh, vendors,
No, because vendors bring
especially
them
if
a lot of money.
exactly. And also, if you have someone who's causing a scene, then other customers aren't going to want to come.
Yep.
And so
Yeah. Everyone's
they'll usually
motivated to like let's not.
exactly. And so um, I would say, 99% of the time, you know, if you just say hello, how are you doing, or good
Yep.
morning, or some kind of very, I call it a neutral greeting.
Mhm.
People are just they're either going to say hi, they're going to, good morning, whatever, or they'll ignore you.
Yep.
Which, if they ignore you, so be it.
Because there's also going to be a lot of people there talking to them and trying to get their attention. So
Exactly.
it again is
Exactly.
not a personal thing. Like if I'm walking down, like I can tell you at the mall, the people who like really, really, really want to get me to sign up for their cellular will be like, "Hello, good morning," and I'll be like, "Not you," and keep
Yeah,
walking. Like it
exactly.
isn't personal, but like absolutely not. And it
Yeah.
isn't about them. It's not about who they are. It's just about I explicitly don't want what they're giving. And so
And
like not being aggressive, but you know,
yes. And that's where I think, if you feel comfortable standing up and standing up for a whole event, good on you. Um, and you can just like stand and wave and like good morning, or if you want to sit, and because I've had some people be like, don't ever sit. No, you can sit.
I'm
Like
disabled. I'm not standing an entire event. That is just never
exactly,
happening.
exactly. But you can still be sitting and looking up at who is,
Yeah, you can be
in the
present and still
space.
engage people.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
if you have a grumpy person who's like, well, why are you, you just be like, yeah,
Yep.
you can be as open or as closed as you can. Just be like, ah, my back's killing me today. It's been a
Yep.
long day. My feet are killing me. You don't have to go into a great detail, but you can just be
Right.
like, you know. So, but
So
stay cheerful.
yeah. So like the three things. So number one is stay off your phone and be engaged.
Yes,
With like obviously we're all gonna have to glance at our phones sometimes. Maybe our kids are
exactly.
sick. Maybe something's happening. But like try and stay present. Number two, greet people and say hello. Have a pitch ready for when they engage with you. And number three, understand that if somebody's grouchy or surly or just not nice to you, it's not about you. Don't take it
Yeah.
personally. They're just having a day. I think those are three pieces of excellent advice.
And I actually have number four.
Oh, number
Sorry,
four,
I said
bonus round.
four. Bonus round. So, and this has to do more with other vendors and the people running the event.
Hmm.
Do not, do not pack up before the event officially ends unless you are explicitly told by the people running the event that you can.
Hmm.
Because 9 times out of 10, you will not be invited back to that event.
Gotcha.
And 9 times out of 10, like, the people who run events, they talk to each other. That's actually how I've been able to go to some of these events, is I've had folks who, either other vendors or the people who running the events, have
Hmm.
seen me at other events and are like, "Hey, I think your books would do really well at my event. Would Are you interested?"
Yep, because it's a
So people
small
talk.
world. It's a small world.
It is.
Of course, this is obviously notwithstanding like some kind of major emergency or something. Like,
Exactly.
if your house is on
So,
fire and you need to go, go.
or like, there have been cases where folks, where a family member was in the hospital
Yep,
and the person who was doing the event, that they couldn't, there wasn't anyone else who could go see the person in the
yep.
hospital. And so in cases like that, um then yeah, they'd go talk to the person and be like, "Look, this is an emergency. I was not expecting this."
Yeah.
And um generally speaking, the people who run the events um are understanding.
Hmm.
That said, there's also been some vendors who are just like, "I haven't made as much money as I thought I was going to make at this
Right.
event,
Being a
so I'm
prima
going to
donna
leave."
does you no favors.
Exactly, exactly. And I've been to events where I've had vendors next to me who've been prima donnas and they do not get invited back.
Hmm.
Um, and then and that's where the whole stay until the event ends
Hmm.
um, is very important. And that's part of having the good community with not only the people running the events, but other vendors. Because, like you said, it's a very small
Yep.
community. People know each other. And if you are a friendly and helpful fellow
Yep.
vendor, um, so many doors will open up.
Absolutely. Like at Reader Nation, that's the only experience that I have. The people at the booths next to me, like I got to talking with them, we became friendly, we exchanged books, and now
Oh,
we
yeah.
talk on social media. Like you can, in addition to selling books, you can do a lot of important networking at those kinds of
Yes.
events with readers, but with other authors and with the people around you, with the people running the events.
Hmm.
So I think that that's 4 and 5. 4 is don't pack up before the event ends, and 5 recognize that the value of the event isn't just monetary, but it's
Exactly.
also the people, the environment, the networking, and being part of these communities who will then help you, we hope, continue to be part of these communities and talk about you kindly behind your back. Because
Exactly.
people talking well about you in rooms that you are not in is gold. That is
Oh, yeah.
invaluable currency. If people have kind things to say about you when you're not looking, that is top tier.
That was actually one of the things I learned even before I started publishing. I'm going to jump back in time to when I was in college and I was writing and everything. And I went to my very first writer
Oh,
conference
baby's
as
first
a baby.
conference.
Exactly. And this was my college. We were roommates for like one semester. But one of my college friends, who's also a writer, and I want to say she's up in Salt Lake. I think her husband's done like FanX and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but we met up at this um I forget what writer convention or event, but it was like a Saturday afternoon kind of thing. It was a small event.
Hmm.
Um, but we were both in one of the sessions together, and she ended up, one the person who was speaking was talking about how uh, basically connecting with other people is absolute gold, and having that, like,
Hmm.
grassroots,
Yeah,
I want
I
to
think
say,
that's a good.
community. um and that that's honestly in many ways better than advertising for small authors, for
Hmm.
authors who are just getting started. Having that grassroots, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean your friends and family who are like, "Oh, we're going to buy your book because we're your friends and
Yeah,
family."
it's people who
But
are outside your, like, these are my besties who support me, but the people who are just one step beyond that.
exactly. And so my friend had ended up going to the speaker after the session was over and was asking more information about this, and she was like, "Look, if you have a whole bunch of people who, like, who are not necessarily your friends and family, your immediate group, but who who know about you, who like you, who, they've had good interactions with you,
Hmm.
they're going to um absolutely they will tell their friends about you
Yep.
because even if they're not interested in the genre, they'll know people who are interested in the genre. They'll be your word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of also ties into behavior at events. Um and why it's so good to have a good like um social demeanor. I don't
Yep.
want to say customer service, but like outward
I mean, it
persona.
is in a way customer service. It's a public facing persona.
Exactly. And because you never know when someone who is, even if they're not interested in your books, they know someone who absolutely is, and they will tell them, hey, go over to this event,
Yep.
or they'll take your business card. And I will share a story of an event where I was a consumer
Mm-hmm.
and a person, a very well-known person on the internets. They were one of the showcasing like entertainment. And after their show, you could come up and buy like swag and
Mm-hmm.
that stuff from them. And this is an example of what not to do.
Oh.
So, I am not going to name names. I'm just
Nope,
saying
that's
this is
fine.
a famous person.
Yep.
Um,
Don't meet your
I went to
heroes. I have been there.
exactly, exactly. Don't meet your heroes. Um, so I went to this event and there was a big long line to get swag from this
Mm-hmm.
entertainer. And it was a book event. So I love the event. I ended up meeting a whole bunch of amazing authors who I follow. The authors were amazing. This particular entertainer, not so much.
Gotcha.
Um, but I got in line and this is in Arizona. And even though it was May, it's hot. Even after the sun goes
Yep.
down, it's hot. So I'm waiting in a long line because I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love watching this person's stuff online and da 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 da. I finally get to the front of the line to buy the swag, the merch, and everything. And the entertainer completely ignores me and instead looks at the person behind me and is like, "Oh, hey, da 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 da," and is like very animated with them. And the person behind me says, "Actually, I think she was in line in front of me." And the entertainer just was like, "Oh, oh," kind of like not did not want to have any interaction with me whatsoever. And I'm just like, "I'm trying to buy stuff from
That's
you."
awful.
Thankfully, there was another the um one of there was the entertainer had sort of person part of their troupe, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say, who was also at the table, who's also well known. And they they kind of stepped in because it was kind of awkward, like, oh hey, da, 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 da.
Yep.
And I got my merch and that kind of stuff. But the
It really soured
main
you
person,
on.
yeah, so I don't watch this person's stuff anymore. I unfollowed them on all the social
Yep.
medias, and I do not recommend people going to see this person anymore. So that is
Mm-hmm.
a so even though they're a very well-known uh like entertainer and online
Yep.
presence, when I met them in person, um the fact that like the funny thing was that their friend was like, "Oh, well, it's been a long time, we were just on a flight today. We've had a long day, da 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 da." And I'm like, he was very animated with the lady behind me
Yep.
and with the people in front of me. So, I don't know if this individual was tired, jet lagged. Maybe they were, but they weren't acting jet lagged with some of the
Yeah, like
folks.
every interaction is an opportunity to show who you are.
Exactly. And so when I came home, I was talking with my husband. He's like, this just as an author, as a public person, as especially as your books become more popular, um this is an important thing to know is that even if it's someone you don't know, even if it's someone
Mm-hmm.
who you could care less about, to always have that public persona on because you never know how important you are to them.
Yep. That's
And
true.
whether or not they're going to now say, "Oh, well, I met my hero and they're a jerk."
Yep.
And so for me, I'm just like, I don't, when I'm at events and if I'm running out of energy, I will say, "Hey, look, it's been a long day. My brain's
Yep.
fried, but I am glad you're here."
Right, like it does, like even when I'm at my most exhausted, I try and be kind and gracious to people. I might be like, I am so glad you're here. I have no energy left, but I'm super happy to see you. And your enthusiasm is great. I just have zero spoons, so please don't take it personally.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And I will say, whenever I've been in that situation where I'm exhausted, and I'm just like, I wish I had more energy to interact with you and stuff, but this is just, it's the end of a long
this is what I
day,
got right
or
now.
yeah, people are absolutely gracious about it because they're
Yep,
like, everyone has understood what it is
yep.
to just
Everybody's
be
had a long
exhausted.
day. Everybody's
Yeah,
been exhausted and at the end of a long day and still have to be people. Everybody has been there. So
yeah,
being honest and kind about it is not it
yeah,
will get you a lot more positive, and it's again that reinforcing that genuine human connection, that humanity of the person.
yeah. And that is, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've gotten from doing these events in general. Other than like, the marketing and learning how
Yeah.
to all that kind of stuff. That's all kind of tertiary. The main thing is from these events is that human connection
Yep.
and learning how to connect with folks in that kind of uh like an event, that's the kind of situation, as you know having that genuine connection with people. And that has, I'll say, that pays off. I've already had
Hmm.
events where people have met me from earlier events, and they see me at another event. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're here!" And they're
That's
all
wonderful.
excited. And I'm just like, this.
Yep.
It doesn't matter whether or not they buy
Buy
my
anything.
books or anything, but they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you're my favorite author!" And they'll
Yep.
want to take pictures. Or, I've had parents who they tell their kids, "Hey," even though their kids aren't quite old enough to be reading my stuff,
Hmm.
they're like, this is a local author. This is, you know, you can be an author like them one day,
Yep.
when, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, "Hey, would you be willing to take a picture with my kid?" I'm like, "Cool."
Excellent.
And hopefully one day that kid will see that picture and be like, "Oh my gosh, I met LL Nelson before they were famous."
Yep.
And you know,
Absolutely.
so
I think that is an excellent note to end on, is the point of these events and so on is to reinforce the human connection. Yes, make book sales. That's important. We need to make sales. We need to make back what we put in on the table if possible. But sometimes a successful event isn't just about dollar signs, it's about connecting with the people, the community, the people around it, finding your people, and sowing seeds for future involvement with that community and with those people. So, just
exactly.
as a reminder, this is LL Nelson, who is a fabulous human being, and she is the author of the Losharan. Yes, Lohisharan
Yeah.
Chronicles. Sorry, I cannot pronounce that word. We'll get there someday. Lohisharan and the Tempest Viatores series. And she's got this Kickstarter coming up for the fifth book in the Tempest Viatores series, which is Jockey Hollow Joymakers. There is going to be a link to that down below in the show notes. So please check that out. Give her some support. She is a delightful human being, and dragons and time travel? Heck yes, let's do this. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you.